Welcome, everyone. Great to see you. Hi, Sheila, Leah, Naomi. So many familiar faces. Hope everyone's doing well. Feel free to share in the chat where you're joining us from, and maybe this is your first time. Any first timers? Tampa.
Yeah, I wish I was in Tampa. And I'm glad I'm not in rainy St. Paul right now. Highland, Indiana. I'm from Evansville, Indiana.
Yeah, it's like the other end of the state.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking you must be up there somewhere.
Yeah. We're sort of like opposite ends.
Yeah.
Hi, Pearl. Good to see you. Michelle.
Hello, all. How's everyone doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Glad to hear. Glad to hear.
It's that time of year where I have to keep my windows closed during events and meetings like this because the landscapers are, running wild.
Yeah, it's definitely that time of year for sure.
I'll give everybody one more minute before we get started.
And pretty soon it'll be road construction, right? And we'll hear road construction and leaf blowers all the time.
Yep.
Which is fine. I'll take it any day.
Yeah.
Yes. Better than the dreary winter days. Give me some sun.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm digging out those spring clothes too. I'm like, let me put some color on today. Hi, Lisa. All right, let's, I want to be mindful of everyone's time, so we will get started. Lots of familiar faces, so you probably know I'm Allison Matizik, the VP of Enterprise Sales. I'm joined by my co-host, Joanna Polgarin, our Senior Program Manager. And I want to give a warm welcome to any first timers, our chapter leaders, as well as our corporate partners. We're thrilled to have a guest expert from ABA speaking today, who I'll introduce shortly. ABA is also one of our sponsors for Mobilize Women. Mobilize Women is our annual summit, which is coming up, in less than 2 months, I think it is, June 6th and 7th. For anyone who is looking to escape to New York City in the late spring, early summer, I encourage you to grab your ticket for our gala, which is taking place on June 6th. And then our virtual Mobilize Women Summit will take place on June 7th. So Joanna will share those details in the chat so you can register. For today, to make the most of our time together, just here are a few shared expectations. We encourage active listening, so give your full attention to the speaker and what other attendees are sharing. Turn your video on when possible. It helps us all feel more comfortable in a room of familiar faces. Share bravely and participate in breakout rooms. Share with others in your room. Everything's confidential. Have respect for other attendees. This is a judgment-free zone, and come in with an open mind. And lastly, support one another. This can be through advice, solidarity, in another member's situation. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce you to Kathy Nestricht, the Women's Leadership Lead at ABA, who's going to be talking about leading impactful, productive, and inclusive meetings. Kathy will help us learn why inclusive meetings can reduce interruptions, how to mitigate the taking of others' ideas, and how to encourage everyone in the room to speak up authentically. So Kathy, it's all yours.
There we are. Hello, everybody. Let's see. Can you see my screen? Yes. Okay. For some reason, I can't see my screen. So hopefully we'll be okay. I need to figure that out. I'm going to have trouble if I can't see my screen in terms of advancing it.
Are you able to go out of screen share? Maybe you could go in and out.
Okay, that's an idea. Stop share. All right, we're gonna open this up. We're gonna start again. All right. There we go. Now I can see everybody. And let me click from the beginning. So hello, everybody. I'm so glad that you've joined today, and we're going to talk about meetings. And we spend so much time in meetings, and so this is a really important topic. And by the way, when I say meetings, I'm also including calls. Because in our work from home and our hybrid environments, meetings and calls have just kind of merged, and they're just kind of the same thing nowadays. So to get us started, I want you to think about how much time you typically spend in a meeting. So think about your schedule today, or think about your schedule yesterday. What percentage of your time is in a meeting? So on average, a middle manager spends 35% of her time in meetings. And on average, a senior leader spends 50% of her time in meetings. So does that resonate with you? Drop in the chat, yes, no. How much time are you spending in meetings? So clearly we're spending a lot of time doing these activities, but there's really not much training. We should have training on how to lead inclusive and impactful meetings, but most organizations do not. Across industries, across organizations, we don't give enough attention on implementing effective strategies to lead really well collaborative meetings. And this hinders everyone, but in particular, it hinders women and other people who are underrepresented in organizations. My view on meetings is that generally we all show up with the goal of collaborating. We know that we don't have all of the ideas. We know that we want to talk to other people about what their ideas are. We know that two heads are better than one. We know that diverse perspectives, a diverse group is better at finding those innovative solutions. So if we all have these good intentions when we walk into the meeting, what is going on? What's the problem? So today we're going to talk about hurdles. So we're going to become hurdlers by the time this session is over. So we're aspiring to be the woman on the image. We want to be a hurdler so that we can navigate around problems that we're facing in meetings and calls. And if we know what these issues are, then we're going to be able to navigate even better. Many of these hurdles relate to gender, and we have a whole new vocabulary about challenges that women face during meetings and calls. And when I say women, I mean all women. I mean Black women, Hispanic women, Asian American women, LGBTQ women, women living with disabilities, women with any other marginalized identity. So we're talking about all women here today. So let's discuss what are these hurdles and the new vocabulary that is describing the experiences of women during meetings and calls. And I'm so glad to see all of you here today. So the first word that we're going to talk about is monologues. Studies show that men speak on average 80% of the time during meetings and calls. When a woman speaks only 30% of the time, people walk away feeling like she really talked too much. She dominated the conversation. Women walk a tightrope in meetings. If we don't speak up, okay, if we're too quiet, then we're not seen and we're not heard. We're not offering our diverse perspectives. But even worse, people view us as, well, she must lack confidence, or she must lack competence. She must not know what she's doing, otherwise she would have something to say. On the flip side, we also face pressure about not talking too much. If we talk too much, then we're bossy, or maybe we're aggressive, or we're just one of those women who talks too much. The pressure is increased when we are the only woman in the room, because we feel like there's a spotlight on us. And guess what? There is a spotlight on us because we're the only woman in the room. People are paying more attention to whether or not we're speaking. If you're one of 10 men in a meeting, people are not paying attention about how you're handling speaking as much during a meeting. There are some powerful stereotypes that discourage women from speaking. Think about the word gossip. When you hear the word gossip, what comes to mind? Do you picture a man or do you picture a woman? I'll tell you, I picture a woman because over the years, when I've heard that word, it's usually associated with a woman. There's a doll called Chatty Cathy. I noticed that doll because my name is Kathy. Again, this is a doll that discourages our girls from talking. And when you think about boy toys, toys for boys, I'm not sure there's an equivalent. Have you ever heard of a toy that discourages little boys from speaking? If you had, I want to hear about it because I've never heard of that. In the German language, there's an expression, one man, one word, one woman, one dictionary, because she's got so many words to say. In Japanese, there's a saying, where there are women and geese, there's noise, because we're always talking, just like the geese are always squawking. So all of these words and sayings repeat the false narrative that women talk too much, but that's not true, at least in the workplace. And this creates an environment where men do most of the talking, hence monologues. Monologues are hurdles that get in the way of productive and inclusive meetings. So the next word I want to talk about is man-interrupting. Have you heard of man-interrupting? Okay, I'm seeing some yes, shaking the heads. So when women do speak up, so the last time we were having a hard time saying anything when the monologue's happening. Now we're trying to speak up, and when we do try to speak up, we are often interrupted. Now, here's the deal. Both women and men interrupt women at a higher frequency than we interrupt men. So what that tells us is that women were part of the problem. So we need to be mindful of that. Now, having said that, men do a lot more interrupting than women do, which makes sense because they're talking a lot more than women are talking in the workplace. Men tend to interrupt women 3 times more frequently than they interrupt each other. There have been lots of studies on this. One of the most famous is on the US Supreme Court. There are 9 justices on the court, 5 men, 4 women, and the men interrupt the women justices at a much higher frequency than they interrupt each other. Interrupting is a sign of disrespect. If women are interrupted more frequently, this is a sign that we're not as respected in society and at work. There's a study that backs this up. It just came out. The United Nations conducted a global study, and this is really disheartening. They found that 90% of all people, again, this is global, not just US, 90% of all people globally have a, quote, deeply ingrained bias against women. That's tough. That's tough to hear. So let's drill down in the United States. 43% of women say they've experienced sexism at work. 71% say that we haven't done enough to ensure equal rights for women. So a lot of work to do globally and in the United States. Man-interruptions are hurdles that get in the way of productive meetings. Now let's talk about mansplaining. Have you heard about mansplaining? Okay, so this happens when a man says something to a woman in a condescending or patronizing way. He assumes that he is the expert in the room, and he can't imagine that the women who are sitting at the table have anything more to say on the subject matter. It's been described as a combination of overconfidence and cluelessness. The best example of mansplaining that I've seen is there was a post written by a man where he is explaining, get this, vaginas. He is explaining vaginas to a noted female gynecologist. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, that's the best one, right? So I also have a story for you. I delivered a keynote at a recent conference, and I was talking about mansplaining. So immediately following my keynote, we went into discussion groups. It was unrelated to my session. We were just moving on to the next session, and I was staying for the full day. So I'm sitting at my table, and there are 6 people around the table, 5 women, 1 man. We get to the first discussion question and the man starts offering his expertise on the topic, and he just keeps talking. He talks about his expertise. At some point, he turns to me and he says, "Am I mansplaining?" And I said, yes, you are. You are mansplaining right now. And he kept going. So actually that was a twofer. He was mansplaining in the midst of a monologue. Mansplaining is another hurdle that we face in meetings. The final topic that I want to talk about is bro-appropriating. And that's the very real problem of men taking women's ideas and running with them. This is not okay if the woman is not given credit for her really great idea. There was a post on Reddit that I want to share with you that talked about one woman's experience with bro-appropriating. This is what she wrote. "I am absolutely fed up with dealing with male colleagues who regurgitate my own original ideas back to me as if they suddenly are enlightening me on something amazing and innovative they contrived themselves." She went on to say, "How hard is it to give credit to someone and recognize and accept that, yes, other people can bring value to the table. That's the whole point of a team." And you would not believe the women who piled on and gave examples of this very same thing happening to them in the workplace. So that was kind of a fun post to watch. So the bottom line is, until we solve these problems, monologues, man-interrupting, mansplaining, and bro-appropriating, we will not have inclusive, impactful, and productive meetings. So, final slide. We're going to become hurdlers today. What are the solutions here? And I have some ideas that I want to walk through with you, but these are not 100% fixes. And part of what we're going to do in the breakout session is think about, are these the problems that you face during meetings and calls? What are your ideas on fixing these problems? So let's talk about this list of ideas to get you started. The first is set expectations. So if you're the leader of the meeting, tell people in advance, I want to hear from everyone. I want everyone to contribute to the meeting, and here's what we're going to talk about. So people come prepared and also know that you expect everyone to speak up. Second, manage airtime. And this is really, really important, especially on those monologues. Before walking in, think about how long is the meeting scheduled for? How many topics do I have on my agenda? How many people will be there? And just do some quick math to figure out how long should people be talking per topic so that you know a monologue when it's starting to happen and you can stop it. And you can say, "Phil, thanks so much. We're short on time. We need to move to Sarah so that we can get input from everyone today." The third idea, ensure information equality. And by that, I mean, as you're preparing your agenda, and I believe agendas are critically important so that everybody understands what's going to happen during the meeting. Think about whether all meeting participants have the same information. I can't tell you how many meetings I've walked into, and especially in situations where I'm maybe the only woman or one of the few women, and the men have more information than me because they went to lunch together or they just had an informal powwow about what was happening on a particular project. And so then I walk into the meeting and I don't have as much information. And so guess what? I don't feel like I can contribute to the same extent that they can. That's unfair. So make sure if you're the leader, you're providing everybody with the information, the most up-to-date information, so that everyone can contribute. The next idea is include everyone. And here I'm thinking about a hybrid environment. Make sure that people who are tuning in remotely feel like they're part of the meeting. Call on them first. Make sure that they are contributing and feel like they can contribute to the same extent that people are physically in the room. The next is schedule equitably. Think about who the people are on your team. If you have caregivers on your team, an 8 a.m. meeting may not be the best time to do that. You may have people who have special religious events that they want to do particular days of the week or particular times of the day. So just know your team, know what the limitations are and special accommodations that need to be made for the team so that everyone can participate in your meeting. And then the final suggestion is rotate note-taking. And here, this is a nod to the fact that women do a lot more office housework than men do on average, and note-taking is one of those. So let's make sure that whether it's note-taking or anything else under the umbrella of office housework, let's make sure everyone is participating on a rotational basis. So those are that's kind of the backdrop before we move into our breakout rooms. So these are the discussion questions that I would love for you all to talk about when you go into your rooms. What are the hurdles you experience? Maybe you experience some of these, but maybe there are some others that you experience. What is getting in the way of productive meetings for you? And then what strategies have worked for you when dealing with monologues, man-interrupting, mansplaining, and appropriating? It's a mouthful, isn't it? And then how else? What are your other ideas? How else can we foster productive, impactful, and inclusive meetings? And think about it from the perspective of if you're the leader, and also from the perspective of if you're a participant and not a leader. So Joanna, can we now put people into breakout rooms?
Yeah, Joanna's going to work her magic. Does anyone have any questions for Kathy before we go into the breakout rooms? I know we'll have time when we come back, but just thought I'd offer that right now before we go into the rooms. This is all great. Thank you so much, Kathy. And remember, in the breakout rooms, there's not an Ellevate facilitator, but just do some light introductions and you can tackle the prompts that Joanna shared. Everything is confidential. This is where the magic happens. And we hope you make some great connections and learn something new.